What's up, you guys? Joe here with Zero Dark Radio again. This is part 2 of my Zodiac Killer video. Today's date is May 9th, 2018. The time is 2:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And this is part 2 of my video. His name was William Joseph Grant, regarding the Zodiac Killer. You're going to probably wonder why or how I know this. Well, first off, in a moment here, we're gonna read some police reports that I came across recently. I've been studying this case for almost 4 years after finding out a biological relative of mine, Sergeant Detective Les Lundblad, was heavily involved in this case after the Lake Herman Road double homicide involving the Zodiac Killer. So I had a biological relative heavily involved in this case, and his suspect was the only guy that had any sort of code writing trading. Cryptography is the official term. Let's just jump right into this police report. I think you're going to find it as interesting as I have. Let me move my camera a little bit over here. There we go. Okay. So this is a Vallejo Police Department report. Vallejo is just about 15 minutes north of where I am right now. It's right over the Benicia Bridge, Solano County, California. The date of this report is June 5th, 1977. Vallejo Police Department, case number 243145, page 1. And this is the text. SO, Sheriff's Office, which is the department my uncle worked for, was contacted by a confidential informant in regard to possible new developments in the Darlene Ferrin 187 homicide occurring July 4th, 1969 at the Blue Rock Springs Park. This is Vallejo Police File 6243146. Upon reviewing information submitted, there seems to be sufficient cause to initiate an investigation to ascertain the validity of this information. Information consists of the following points, which are only brief inquiries into the background of the alleged suspect, William Joseph Grant. Doesn't say his name in here, but this is the guy. It probably will say his name. This information is viewed as circumstantial at best, but sufficient to require follow-up investigation. Scroll down a little bit here. Point number 1. There is, in existence, 2 composites of the alleged Zodiac Killer from witnesses. One from San Francisco, one from Lake Berryessa. Both were homicides. This alleged suspect, tentatively matches the description in all cases. A photograph submitted from a driver's license taken in 1969 of the suspect has a good resemblance to the composites from other jurisdictions, referring to the San Francisco case, the Lake Berryessa case, and all the other, even Sacramento, etc. But they're referring to San Francisco and Lake Berryessa. Point number 2. Research into the suspect's military background indicates that he did receive 7 months of training in military code work and then was an instructor in cryptography. Point number 3. He apparently knew the family of the victims as a mysterious caller. He placed 3 separate calls within 1.5 hours after Darlene Ferrin's death to each of the family members. This guy's a sick mother, if you know what I'm saying here. These calls were made before media announcement of the murder and made certain references indicating the caller knew Darlene. Point number 4. The suspect spent many hours at the restaurant where Darlene worked as a waitress. This has been verified by a Vallejo Police Department officer, Officer Baldino, Italian, who has picked the subject's picture out of a lineup. I have to scroll down here, indicating he has been seen in there conversing with the deceased. This is just shady, man. Point number 5. An incident had occurred in Vacaville. Vacaville is just north of Vallejo. In regard to threatening letters received and phone calls made. This suspect has been identified as an individual seen in a parked car in the area where the young woman lived. His vehicle matched exactly the description of the car seen parked in the area of this young woman's apartment in Vacaville, and tentatively, his photograph has been identified as the man who was sitting in that vehicle. In regard to the same case, he was accurately described by witnesses who indicated the same young woman in Vacaville incident who had apparently gone to a mountain area to visit a relative some 200 miles north. The suspect matched the description of the individual who followed her to that area. Point number 6. It appears that during known Zodiac activities, the suspect was unemployed. It has been correlated that during the suspect's periods of employment, there were no Zodiac incidents reported. Very interesting. Suspect is a member of Alcoholics Anonymous and has had a problem with alcohol for a number of years. He's been involved with Alcoholics Anonymous since 1962. This, in turn, gives him an unusual amount of freedom from his family responsibilities, especially at night. Need to scroll down here for point number 7 in the police report. There are several clues in the letters that appear to have application to the suspect, one of which refers to a postcard received by the San Francisco Chronicle on 3/71, indicating there's a little bit of a whiteout there, of the Sierra Club and Peek Through the Pines. It has been established that the suspect lives in a very thick group of pine trees in a remote area, and you can only see the residence by looking down or peeking through the pines on the roadway. Furthermore, there was another remark made by the Zodiac Killer that, quote, "I was swamped out of the rain we had a while back." In going to the area the suspect lives in, it is noted the time period, meaning month of the year, this area is subject to heavy flooding, and photographs have been obtained in the area in the general vicinity of the subject's house while it was flooded. I need to scroll down for point number 8, and we'll keep going. Point number 8, the suspect did, in fact, own a vehicle that approximates the suspect car on the Vallejo homicide. That's my uncle's case. That being a white 1961 Chevrolet. You with me here? I would love to hear comments. Please leave comments. We're going to keep going here. Point number 9, a young woman by the name of Karen, redacted, they blank her last name out, was a babysitter for the deceased Darlene Ferrin during the months of January through May of 1969. She reports an incident where an older white male matching the general description of the Zodiac Killer and the alleged suspect was watching the residence of Darlene. This is just shady. Getting the chills. Upon questioning Darlene in regard to this, Darlene indicated she had seen this subject do something, I can't make out that word, awkward. I can't make that word out. AW something, and indicated it was a murder. At that time, she allegedly said the same. I don't really understand that other than he was watching her house. I don't understand the last part. Point number 10. Another point seems to be involved in homosexual activities, as is documented by a report of the Solano County Sheriff's Office received as to suspect hanging around the rest stop area on Hunter's Hill engaging in homosexual activities. He was questioned by Sergeant Lundblad, that's my uncle, in regard to these activities, and another incident was brought up on regarding his behaving in a hostile manner towards a CHP officer, Lyndon Lafferty, who I mentioned in my last video. A documentation is also available on this. Reporting officer, upon reviewing these points of interest, elected to initiate an investigation. Need to scroll down here. On June 10th, 1977, contact was made with one Karen, redacted, WFA, white female adult. WFA means white female adult in police lingo. 25 years, 336 blank, that's her address. Phone blank. They're giving her information in case any detective needs to follow up. Reporting officer requested an interview with Miss Blank in regard to the above-mentioned incident with Darlene Ferrin. She complied. At VPD, Vallejo Police Department, Miss Blank related that she was 17 years old and babysitting for Dean and Darlene Ferrin. Again, reiterated the months were from January through May of 1969. Stated she quit in May to overcome some guilt she was feeling about covering up for Darlene's running around with other men while she was married to Dean. One of the men mentioned that she was a surviving victim in the Vallejo homicide of Michael Mago. Karen relates one incident that allegedly occurred while she was babysitting in February or March of 1969 at 560 Wallace. She stated she was babysitting at approximately 10 p.m. one night, was looking out the front window of Ferrin's apartment, and she noticed a man whom she took to be middle-aged sitting in a white American-made sedan watching the apartment. She stated he was there for several hours but left before Dean returned from work shortly after midnight. She stated she could not really describe this individual and only knew he was middle-aged because he either turned on the inside car light or lit a cigarette so that she got a partial look at the man. She did not note the license plate number and was only certain of the approximate age, middle-aged, which is middle-aged, and the fact that the sedan was white. Very interesting. Now there's a pattern here. There's a heavy pattern forming here. The following day, she related this incident to Darlene Ferrin, who was a homicide victim, who at the time recalled was in the bathroom putting on her makeup to go out. Darlene asked her what the car and the man looked like, and after relating a description to her, Darlene said something to the effect, "I guess he's checking up on me again. I heard he was back from out of state," followed by, "He doesn't want anyone to know what I," meaning Darlene, "saw him do. I saw him murder someone." Wow. Karen stated that Dee, sometime during this conversation, mentioned the man's name, and that the first name was very short, 3 or 4 letters, and that the second name was slightly longer, William Joseph Grant. Will Joseph Grant. I'm just making an assumption here. The name was quite common, Karen stated, that Dee appears to be genuinely frightened of this individual. Need to scroll down. And mentioned sometime that he had been checking up on her at Terry's restaurant where Darlene was employed. At the conclusion of her statement, reporting officer discussed with Karen the possibility of her recalling exactly what the name might have been and a better description of the individual if she were to undergo hypnosis. Stated that she never had any experience with this, but that she would be willing to submit to anything that may assist in the investigation. At this time, reporting officer advised Karen that arrangements would be made for a session with a hypnotherapist to see if we could produce more information, and that the reporting office would be in contact. On June 15th, 1977, reporting officer contacted Lieutenant Larry Haynes, Concord Police Department. Phone number, and this is an old school phone number. I'm not even going to read it because someone probably has it today. In regards to the hypnotic session, Lieutenant Haynes has been trained in this by Law Enforcement Hypnotic Institute in Los Angeles Police Department and has had much experience in this area. When asked as to the feasibility of such an examination with an 8-year time span, Lieutenant Haynes replied much success had regardless of the number of years that had. Lieutenant Haynes replied, much success has been had regarding the number of years that has passed. Advised Lieutenant Haynes that the interview primarily would focus on Karen's ability to recall a name told to her by the Zodiac victim, Darlene Ferrin, and possibly focus on a painting party that occurred at Darlene's residence, where possibly the alleged subject was in attendance. Lieutenant Haynes agreed to assist, An appointment was made for June 16th, 1977 at 1300 hours. That's 1 p.m. military time. Reporting officer then recontacted Karen, redacted, her last name is blanked out, advised her of the appointment set for 1300 hours, 1 p.m. She agreed to meet reporting officer at Vallejo PD, June 16th, 1977, 1300 hours. The Concord Police Department, for the hypnotic interview, Karen was fully apprised of what to expect during the interview, and a discussion explaining the nature of hypnotism then took place. Sorry, I had a antivirus thing pop up. She had no objections that the session would be taped by audio and video, and with that, the session began. Lieutenant Haynes, after inducing a hypnotic trance, explored certain areas of concern, particularly the discussion had with Darlene while putting on her makeup. Karen was able to recall a general description of the male. The description was a heavy-set, middle-aged white male adult, very round face, curly, wavy brown hair. The vehicle was a white sedan with a large windshield. She couldn't recall whether or not the subject had on glasses or whether or not the subject smoked. She was given a post-hypnotic suggestion that if the subject she perceived while in the trance was, in fact, our suspect, that she would be able to pick him out of a lineup at a later date. She has no idea who the suspect is at this point. She was also given instructions that she would remember the face that she perceived in the trance, and that she would assist in producing a composite, a sketch, with a police artist. I need to scroll down here. The name of the individual was not recalled. Although she remembers clearly the conversation with Darlene, she did relate that a phone was ringing. It's felt that the phone ringing is offsetting her subconscious, and possibly she's trying to subconsciously suppress the information due to her fears of having to testify in court over this matter. Wow. In regard to the painting party which took place in May of 1969 at 1300... I think that's 1300. It's like typewriter, and it's a little old, so I can't really read it. Virginia Street, the new residence of Darlene Ferrin. It was determined that she was, in fact, there taking care of Darlene Ferrin's youngster, Dina, and that 3 unidentified white males arrived, and that she soon left the residence due to the fact that she was uncomfortable with these strange individuals. It's not certain whether any of these individuals may or may not have been the suspect. She did indicate that they were young. At the conclusion of the interview, Karen was advised that the police department would contact for follow-up in regard to possibly her recalling the name given to her by Darlene in the conversation, and a photo lineup would be assembled for her to view. Complete details on the interview are on videotape and will be submitted for evidence. 6/17/1977, 10:30 hours, 10:30 in the morning. Contact reestablished with confidential informant in regard to following up on the information received. At this point, photographs of the alleged suspect as he was in 1969 and a brief history of the suspect was obtained. The period of service that subject served in the U.S. Air Force was noted to be the 7th of January 1942 through the 9th of November 1945, heavy World War II times for the United States. At this point, the suspect will be fully identified and is as follows. William Joseph Blank. Date of birth, March 6, 1920, Winchester, Massachusetts. That's where he was born. Social Security, and then it gives a social security number, but it's redacted. The residence in question was P.O. Box 416, Suisun City, California. Currently, subject is employed as a real estate salesman at Blank Realty, 1245 Blank, Fairfield, California. A Soundex of the driver's license subject possessed in 1969 was submitted, and I can't really make that out. And then it shows a bunch of his codes, ciphers. I'm scrolling to see if there's anything. I mean, it's all code. All I'm seeing right now is a series of letters and numbers and Here's something. The celebrity cipher of 9/25/1990 was never made public by the Times Herald or the Vallejo Police Department. This isn't really that interesting. But anyways, that's the police report. I would love to hear your comments. Love to hear your comments. Please leave a comment. Let me know your thoughts. And thank you for watching.